Hello and welcome to my Crusader Kings 2 tutorial. If you're like a lot of my friends, you'd like to try Crusader Kings, but you're intimidated by the seeming complexity of the game and what appears to be a steep learning curve. And it kind of is, but really it's an interface learning curve. Once you get what's going on, you can get right into the swing of the game. So I'm here to help you get past this initial difficulty. So in this guide, we'll cover the basics of what you need to know to just jump in and run a reasonably successful realm. I'm going to keep it, concise as possible, only covering the things that you really need to know, not going into, advanced play or anything like that. So to start, let's just do a quick overview of what you see in your interface. Up here, you've got your character portrait, and if you click on it, that'll bring up your character screen. Moving along, you've also got various important tabs that you can use to gather information about what's going on and take important actions. And then here, you've got your notifications. As you can see, it's notifying me that I should pick an ambition and a character focus. Then over here, I've got my wealth. That's pretty self-explanatory. And my prestige. That's like, how great I am in the world. My, how much people admire me and look up to me and all that. And I've got my piety, which is, like my religious favor. My domain size, which represents the counties that I personally hold, and my vassal limit and how many of that I have taken up, and that's, well, how many vassals I can direct, how many count or level higher vassals I can personally control. And then I've got my realm size, which, how big my total realm is, and my score, which, don't worry about score. You can see the date and the current speed. It's paused right now. Moving down, you can see my domain again. I personally hold the County of Dijon, and what everyone in my court is doing. Then down here, there's various map modes. The default is terrain. I rarely use it. Independent realms is often nice, but in my case, I'm not independent, so I'll show you something later. But I'm not going to go through all the map modes just now. So what does everything on here mean? Well, let's go back to our character. If you click on your portrait, you'll see a summary of important information about you. Your portrait, your family members. So here, you can see all your titles. Duke Robert is the Duke of Burgundy, and also the Count of Dijon. But he has a claim on the Kingdom of France. So that means that he could try to take the title from his nephew, the King of France. And there's a few different ways he could do this. So titles and claims are kind of the core mechanic in Crusader Kings 2. All this land everywhere that you see, it's divided into titles. You can see that titles, well, they come in 5 tiers and 3 varieties. So you have temple holdings, city holdings, and feudal holdings. These individual holdings here are baronies. Or there are other equivalents, but I'm going to go with a standard feudal title. Above baronies are counties, and these are the different provinces on the map. Counties are then divided into duchies. So I'll show you. There's a de jure duchies map mode. These are the different duchies that may or may not exist, but it's the ideal division of the world. Duchies are then a part of kingdoms, which are parts of empires. And as you can see, there's just a hierarchical structure here. But if you look, France also controls Aquitaine. And the King of France is not the King of Aquitaine. In fact, there is no King of Aquitaine. However, if there were, the king could declare war on the King of France for Aquitanian land. But if you look at me, I'm the Duke of Dijon, which, rightfully speaking, is a part of the Kingdom of France. Eventually, these duchies will also become a part of France, properly speaking. But if you look at the direct vassals, here you'll see what the actual division of land within France is. So, if you look at Anjou and compare it to his de jure structure, he could try to claim Maine from the Duke of Normandy. However, he would probably lose. So, these titles are, if these titles are the land I actually do hold, well, if you see, these other parts of Burgundy are held by people who aren't me, but they are my vassals, because you can see I am their liege. That means that they have to provide me with troops, and if I set the laws that way, taxes. And now, you can see I have a claim, as I mentioned, on the Kingdom of France. Somebody who has a claim on a title can try to take it for themselves. If your liege has a title that you could go for, you can found a faction. Otherwise, you could just declare war, which I could do anyway. And a claim comes in two varieties. So here you see a strong claim. I can press it at any time. A weak claim, however, let's see if we can find a weak claim to a title somewhere. So this is a weak claim. It can only be pressed if the ruler is a female and the claimant is male, if the ruler of the claimed title is in a regency, if somebody is already claiming the title, or if the claimant is second or third in line to inherit. If you press somebody else's claim to a title, they might not end up as your vassal. Under certain conditions they will, but if you land them first, and the title you're claiming is not greater or equal to your own in rank, then they will remain your vassal. So if you're unsure, just go ahead and land them. You can find claimants to a title, like I showed here. If you're looking at the title screen, click on claimants and you'll see a list, and that thumbs down means these people will not come to my court if I invite them. Alright, so, more on the character screen. Here, as I mentioned before with my notifications, I can set ambitions. So, say my ambition here is to become the Marshal. I set that, and if I become the Marshal, I fulfill the ambition, and in this case, I gain one Marshal. Choosing focuses kind of gives me extra tools to accomplish things. So I'm going to go to War Focus, and that will increase my Marshal, and possibly get me appointed, though unless he has a bad one, probably not. In this case, because I only have 11. So, below here, you'll see traits. I'm Midas Touched, Kinslayer, Brave, Charitable, Gluttonous, and Zealous. Some traits are good, some traits are bad, and some have advantages and disadvantages. Your traits largely determine your skills: Diplomacy, Martial, Stewardship, Intrigue, and Learning. These skills all do various things, and you can mouse over them to see some of the things they do. Diplomacy helps you get along with people. Martial gives you more troops and makes you a better general. Stewardship can get you more tax income. Intrigue is for plotting, and Learning is tech advancement. Each of these skills also has a counselor associated with it, so I'll take a look at that tab. Your Chancellor is associated with Diplomacy. You can improve diplomatic relations, which, makes people like you better. So let's say I want to make my liege like me better, I'd send them there. You can fabricate claims, which means he'll try to get you a claim on a title you want. And he can sow dissent, which can make the target, like if I put it here, anyone in this county will potentially start to hate their liege more. That sow dissent is usually not that great. It has situational use. Then you have your Marshal. They can suppress revolts, which, let's say the peasants are going to try to revolt somewhere here, it would make it less likely. Also, if I use it in one of my vassals' county, it makes it easier to arrest them. I can train troops, which is what I personally usually do, and it increases the size of your army, and you can research military tech, which is okay sometimes. Your steward is associated with your stewardship. He can collect taxes, gets you more money. He can oversee construction, which makes you build things faster. I usually don't use that. Or research economy tech. About 99% of the time, I have him collect taxes in my capital. Then you have your spy master, which is used for plotting. He can scheme, either to get people to join your factions or to get your vassals to leave factions. Build spy network, which is useful for plotting, and study technology from your more advanced places. Your court chaplain can proselytize, try to convert people to your religion, can study learning, or can try to get religious figures to like you better. Usually, if I don't have anywhere to convert, I send him to Rome to suck up to the Pope. Because you can ask the Pope for money if he likes you, you can sometimes get people excommunicated. It's really nice. How do you get these skills and traits? Typically you want to pick the best people for your council, but sometimes appeasing vassals can be worthwhile. Well, every child has an educator, if they're above the age of 6. And occasionally, the Guardian will get an event where they get to pick between several options, which may give their wards traits. Additionally, when the wards turn 16 and come of age, they tend to get what's called their education trait based off of their mentor. So you can see every adult has an education trait. There's 4 ranks and 4 types. There's a really great video on how Guardians give these education traits, and I will link that to you in the video description. Typically, you want to educate your own children, so you can pick good traits, and then if you don't have the education trait you like, when they're 15, you reassign them to a new Guardian with the education trait you want. You know, you marry other rulers' relatives, or other rulers. And because if you're married to someone, you are allied to their family. So you can see here the relationships between people make them my ally. And also, your wife's stats contribute to your ranking with that stats and the stuff you do with it. The children of rulers always get claims on their titles, but not always strong claims. And that's why, for example, her father was Duke of Anjou. She has a weak claim on the Duke of Anjou, and her children by us will have weak claims on Anjou as well. How exactly who gets the title depends on the type of inheritance law you have. So, Gavelkind will split your lands, primogeniture will pass them on to one person, seniority will give them to the oldest person of your dynasty, elective means there's a vote, ultimogeniture goes to your youngest heir, and then agnatic is for men only. There's agnatic cognatic, which is male preference, and then here, which only Basque, Cathar, and Nassalians can have, is absolute equality. Typically, unless you know what you're doing, you want to get out of Gavelkind. So I'll say elective monarchy and nominate him. You may want to try to aim for primogeniture, but it requires high crown authority. These other laws are centralization, which higher centralization gives you a higher domain limit but a lower vassal limit, and vice versa. Then you have your levies and taxation laws. Your vassals get to vote on these, and increasing them makes them unhappy, but can be helpful. In terms of succession, elective's powerful if you know what you're doing, primogeniture and ultimogeniture are easy, seniority will always give you old people, so you'll get a penalty for your short reign, elective Gavelkind is terrible, and as I said, Gavelkind splits your lands but not as badly. Alright, so typically, you know, if you're independent, if you're a king, you want to start increasing crown authority to medium and keep it there. This is centralization, but above here would be crown authority. If you look in France, there's currently autonomous vassals. There's also investiture laws if you're Catholic, which don't worry too much about those when you're first beginning. Alright, so moving on from laws, you see technology. As a beginner, basically, when you get a notice that when you need to invest points in technology, do it. Legalism gets you better laws, majesty is nice because it makes it easier as a new ruler, and a military organization is best. Coming over here, you have our militaries. You see I have vassals that I can raise. I can hire mercenaries, holy orders if they exist yet, which they don't. And my vassals cost me money, my levies cost me money, my vassals' levies just cost me their opinion. I also have fleets, and because I have Legacy of Rome, retinues, which are like a permanent standing army. I could build, but they cost money. So, on to what you're excited about, war. Basically, you can declare war on someone, and if you have your levies raised yet, you can't do that. But if you don't, you choose a casus belli and then declare the war, and at the end of the war there will be 3 options: enforced demands, white peace, and surrender. Enforced demands means you win, white peace it's kind of a tie, nothing changes, and surrender, you lose. And depending on the casus belli, there will be different effects from those. Once you're at war, you fight by just using your combined troops from your levies, retinues, and any mercenaries you can afford. If you can't afford mercenaries, don't hire them. They have a high monthly cost, and if you don't pay it, they may attack you, or switch sides, or even just go home. There's different casus bellis, including claim wars, independence wars, holy wars, that all have different effects. Holy wars can get you a whole duchy at a time, and can be quite nice. Sometimes, though, fighting directly isn't really the best option, so here you have intrigue. So I could plot to revoke these counties, which may lead to war. I could try to kill the heir to France. I could try, if someone's not listed here, you can go to their screen. I could try to kill the King of France. And let's say I try to do that. I can invite people who might want to do it. Higher plot power is better. But if the king catches me plotting, he can imprison me. Then you can also do a faction in this tab. So there's no factions in Burgundy, but let's look at the factions within France we could start. I could try to petition to get the succession law changed. I could try to go independent, and so would anyone who joined the faction with me. I could press someone else's claim for France, which in this case happens to include myself. If I found the faction, other people might join it. You can see it here, there's members. I'm almost equal to the liege, but not quite. But if other people joined, they would join my war for it. And you can send your demands, and if you're really overwhelming, the king might just accept it. People who dislike the king will tend to join the faction against them, or, who dislike the duke or whatever. If someone has above a 60 opinion, they will almost never join a faction. If they have above 80 opinion, they will almost always leave a faction they're in. You can send your spy master to try to get people into your faction. So say I tried to get the Duke of Normandy into my faction, my spy master might do it even if he liked the king. But in this case he doesn't, he might join it. So if I were to let time unpause, someone may join, someone may not. But ultimately it doesn't really matter. I'll just show you what happens. I demand installation of claimant. The king will probably say no, which means that there's a war. In this case, I would lose it, but if I had enough support, I could potentially win it. And that, ultimately, is mostly what you need to know to get started. So if you have any questions, I can address them in another video. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.